Kevin, where did the magic start for each of you as far as getting interested in robotics, electrical engineering for you, Joyce, and computer engineering for you, Kevin?
Gosh. Okay, so electrical engineering, my dad was an electrical engineer and he was always tinkering in the basement and fixing things and pulling things apart. And so I was always down there by his side, kind of like helping him fix things. And when it came time for college, he said, "You're going to be an electrical engineer. That's
Oh,
what I'm
very
paying
cool.
for, and that's what you're going to do." So I did. And actually, I'm very happy I did that because, it really taught me how to break down problems into smaller problems and how to work little things, build a little, test a little, build a little, gave me that engineering mindset of how to solve problems.
I seriously wish more fathers and more parents in general would say that to their daughters. That is awesome. Kevin, how about you? How'd you first fall in love with computer engineering?
For me, it started with a math teacher that I had in high school. My junior year, she told me she was one of my favorite teachers, and she told me she was teaching an AP computer science class, and she was looking for students for the class. So I said, "You're my favorite teacher. Why not?" And that was my first programming experience. Based off of that experience, I realized that I love the problem solving. I love the way that you can overcome challenges via programming. And it kind of opened up a world that I didn't really know what that was there. And as I kind of progressed and got more experience, I realized that I didn't just want to, I guess, code. I wanted to do a little bit more hands-on, physical. That's why I went with computer engineering versus computer science, so that I can get a little incorporate that electrical engineering aspect. And years later, I'm still playing with robots on a day-to-day basis. So I'm excited.
It
How
just
much
shows you what
fun?
an influence that teachers can have on kids or parents, right?
Definitely.
Exactly. Why was she your favorite teacher? What about her made her stand out that yes, you're going to take her class?
Um, she was known as one of the more challenging teachers, to be honest. But I think it's solely because she held expectations for students. But
Mhm.
she would always support us so much through the expectations. And she would push us further than what I thought I could achieve. It was just a positive but challenging environment that I don't know. I just enjoyed that space, my growth, my attitude, my demeanor. And the fact that someone held high expectations for me, which unfortunately every teacher doesn't hold those same expectations. So I guess partly the rigor and the environment she created was definitely what attracted me.
Fast forward to today when you can write code 100% from scratch. By the way, I would encourage people to check out your Pong game. I don't know how in the world you win an invisible Pong game, but maybe you'll tell me sometime in the future. Let's take a look, though, at what's happening with mass robotics. Would you tell me the story of mass robotics, please, Joyce?
Yeah, so MassRobotics was started from what was then the robotics community or cluster run out of the Mass Tech Leadership Council. So pretty much all the big cities have a tech leadership council, and we had a little subgroup that was focused on robotics. And for a couple of years, it really grew. And we got to a point where a bunch of us got together and said, you know what, we really need a place for startups to land because it's very capital intensive what you need to do to build a robot company, right? If you look behind us, you'll see all the different robot arms and there's a conveyor belt and there's different grippers. And so all of those are very expensive. The design tools are expensive. The software packages are expensive. So we thought, let's provide that for all startups that come here and they'll have shared resources. And so we decided to be a nonprofit because we knew we could maybe go after some government and state grants that would help us. A lot of our support comes from our partners who sponsor us financially, but also they're in here working with our startups day to day. So that helps kind of feed the ecosystem. And it was just a really ripe place to have it, right? We have the highest density of universities than really anywhere in the country. And the stat I was just given was there's 70 universities within a 60-mile radius of us. So that's really a lot of talent, bright minds. We also have a very high VC ratio here in Boston. There's a lot of very specialized robotics VCs now. So they help fund some of the startups. The state itself has a lot of incentive programs for robotics companies. So I think there's a lot of factors that play into where a good location would be. So we started this in 2015 is when we kind of came up with the idea and started soliciting sponsors and startups. And we actually got this space and opened in the beginning of 2017. So that's how many years ago? We're almost at our 6 or 7 year anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have, we started as a Massachusetts-based organization, but now we're really global. I'd say in the last 6 months, the majority of our companies are coming from Europe. We have startups from Singapore, Australia, Germany, Switzerland, the UK, Israel.
All over.
It's crazy. Like, it's really like a magnet for companies. And it's great to have everyone under the same roof, because collisions happen between people in the lunchroom when they say, what are you working on? And there's been a lot of collaborating between the companies, which is exciting.
What was one of your absolute favorite experiences as an innovator in those early days of MassRobotics?
Oh gosh. The fun thing about being at a startup, and we are still very much like a startup because we're pretty lean, is you have to do everything. So I know at large companies, like, you have a certain job that's in a lane, but really we had to do everything from scouting the startups to designing the programming, to hosting events, to painting the walls, to picking out, when we did our expansion, we got to pick the tile. It was like building a new house. So it's, and every day we're in here, it's something different. It's exciting. There's people moving around. So we're very open to moving benches around. Like, every month, something looks a little bit different here. So it really helps the companies be able to expand and contract when they need to, hire additional people when they need to. So we're on a very flexible, program. So every day is exciting.
Your STEM program manager job just started this year, but I'm going to guess that you came on board a while before that. How'd you first get involved with MassRobotics?
It's interesting enough. As Joyce was looking to expand the STEM experience, when she kind of put a couple feelers out into the STEM community, apparently my name was on a very short list of names that got Joyce excited. After engaging with MassRobotics and being able to witness some of the events in this space and see all of the robotics companies and how they interacted with one another, and the lab space in general, it reminded me of being back in college, and it just pulled me in. And when I learned more about the Jumpstart Program, which is the high school program that's designed for high school junior and senior females to expose them to everything robotics, and we actually, all the girls who elect to have an internship at the end of the program are guaranteed an internship, which is phenomenal experience for a high school young lady to be exposed to this realm and follow the path similar to Joyce. I just kind of started to fall in love with what was going on with MassRobotics and the fact that it felt like a family that cared about not only each other, but the community. And also, they shared a common passion with me, which is engineering, robotics, computer engineering, computer science, programming, like that entire realm.
So we started this program about 3 years ago, and just said, you know what, it's the right thing to do. We need to diversify our workforce. We do not have enough females. So we actually are about to come, we're at the conclusion of our January through May Saturdays sessions with the girls. And then they're going to head out to their internships. And then in the fall, around the block party time, we'll be advertising for students to apply.
For the next cohort.
Yes. Yeah, so that next cohort, which will be cohort 4. So you need a teacher recommendation. And there's a little application you fill out and talk about why you're interested in the program itself. But we usually send it out to a couple of schools that we've gotten a lot of girls from in the past, but it's on our website. So everything, including the program itself, www.massrobotics.org. And there's a whole area of STEM, and it shows all the programming we do and has a lot of information on the Jumpstart girls.
massrobotics.org. Check it out. Kevin, what about the art of computer programming? That is totally a new concept to me. What is that?
If you ask me, I think everyone should learn how to program. Um, the reason I say that is because it similar to engineering, it changes the way that you process the world around you. To accomplish a simple goal in programming, you have to, it's essentially doing an entire project just to complete one simple program. You have to create a plan and then interpret that plan in a way that the computer can understand it. Essentially, you're learning another language. People don't realize it, but you have to learn the language that the computer understands. And you can ask anybody about bilingual people and how it impacts the brain and how you process the world around you. So you're getting not only the math, the technical skills, but you're getting these linguistic beneficial pieces as well. And I've also noticed that because a lot of us look at programming as being very difficult, as you're able to conquer challenges that you were not able to in the beginning, you see yourself as having many victories. And it changes the way you look at problems overall, because as you're working on a program, there's several minor goals that you have to get accomplished to reach your larger goal. And that type of mindset can translate into any area of life. So there's so many small things that you can learn via programming that I think is phenomenal. And I've seen students change their trajectories because of programming experiences like this. So there's an art that can help people grow in so many different ways if tapped into correctly.
What's one of the most fun experiences you've ever had with teaching a student who didn't see themselves as a roboticist or a programmer, and by the end of the time, they were saying, ooh, I can do this?
I have several, but the first thing that pops into my head was actually an elementary school student who had behavioral issues, and it was very difficult for the teachers and parents to keep them focused to do work during other parts of the day. During the time frame when I was in the classroom teaching, one of those students, I got to interact during my classroom, and I thought it was normal helping him grow just like all the other students, until a teacher pointed out to me that every time I come to the classroom, he does what he's supposed to do that entire day because he knows he doesn't want to miss out on the coding experience with Mr. Smith. I never have to ask him to do anything extra because he's always on point doing it when he's struggling to do work in other classrooms. And the last thing, in all of his free time, he would pick up the coding software I exposed him to and work on his projects and push them so far. And it was just so eye-opening that someone as young as an elementary school can be transformed their entire educational perspective based off of computer science and one code.
You're gonna make me cry.
Which that is absolutely mind-blowing. You have got yourself a future computer engineer there, I think. Wow.
But you see the charisma he has and why he's like the perfect guy for this job.
Exactly. 10 years from today, he's going to be saying in one of my interviews, Mr. Smith did this and that.
There you go.
Yet about Robo Boston. Would you tell me about Robo Boston and what's going to be happening, please? We have a field trip on the 29th and the 30th of September and the 1st.
Yeah, so the 30th this is actually our 6th annual block party. So we do this every year in the fall. And we have last year over 5,000 visitors came through. So we rent a couple of very large tents in the center of Boston. And we've had busloads of people come in. It's really open to educators, students, families, teachers, people in industry, people who are just curious about robotics. And we have, under these large tents, we have flying bionic birds, we have humanoid robots, we have robotic arms and different types of grippers, and there's activities for students to do. They can build a robot finger, they can drive the robot dogs. We have a dog pen where the dogs are outside. We have a drone net so they can fly drones. So it's really about exposure to the community. And we have autonomous vehicles. They can sit in them, they can see what it feels like. It's really to expose the community so they're not fearful of robots, because there's so much bad press out there about robots taking jobs, and really robotics is increasing jobs. So for every robot, think about someone's got to develop it, someone's got to build it, someone's got to program it, someone's got to integrate it, maintain. There's so many jobs that are coming up and are made by robots. So we want the public to understand that they're not fearful. They can come up and touch and play with them, and also expose them to careers. So there's so many careers because it's such a diverse group of disciplines that come together in robotics, right? It's computer engineering, it's also mechanical engineering, it's electrical engineering, it's design, it's functional, it's project management, it's you got to sell the things, and then you have to install. So there's really so much that goes into it. So we just want to expose the entire community to robotics.
Speaking about other majors and discipline, today I had a conversation with an English major that's working at one of the tech companies, because everybody is needed in this realm, and they can provide something to support the experience.
Documentation, which sometimes engineers don't like to do. You need an English major to translate what the engineer's doing to what a person who's not an engineer, right?
So that's part of what we're trying to do. Just really expose everybody and change the way that we think about robotics, about technology in general, so that we're not as afraid of it. We see it as a technical bar that we have to get past. But honestly, it's a way that we can take
and
it.
It's fun.
Right. And I forgot to mention that the event Robo Boston has zero cost associated with for anyone in attendance. So it's free to the public. Please come, bring your family, enjoy yourself, and enjoy all of the robotics that Boston has to offer. September 30th is the day that is open to the public. We are setting up visits with schools on September 29th. So they can contact me at kevin@massrobotics.org, and I can arrange a time for them to visit Robo Boston with their class, if that's what they would like. We prioritize Boston public schools being right here in Boston. However, if there is space available, we are 100% behind providing experiences to all students.
And to add to that, though, if we don't have space for them to come to Robo Boston or the field trip, we can do other field trips here at MassRobotics. So we have a dedicated lab, STEM lab, on another floor. It's got all kinds of robots in it. You got a glimpse of it this afternoon. And we have all types of programming. So, junior high and high school mostly, right? Yeah. But we can go a little bit younger than that. We have all types of immersion, robotics immersion experiences. So they can sign up, and we can do something kind of during the school year too.
Now, what if somebody listening, this would be fantastic for anybody in your area. I would absolutely be there if I were a teacher. But what if somebody listening is maybe located where I am, Long Beach, California? What can they take away from your experiences with Robo Boston and with MassRobotics and bring to their classrooms?
So what's really interesting is that we've been working with a couple schools around the nation via EF Tours. It's a touring organization that gives STEM tours throughout Boston. And we are one of the major stops for them. So we are able to serve schools from Texas, Wyoming, California, all type, where we can bring them to Boston and have them inside of our STEM lab and give them some amazing one-of-a-kind experiences. And some of those schools have asked for additional support in integrating STEM into their district, into their schools back at their home state. And one school in particular in Texas, I'm communicating with about integrating experiences like these, cultivating their STEM, not only in the school, but across the district, as well as letting them know about different resources that we are knowledgeable about. We're not necessarily recommending this product or that product. However, we do have experience with a number of robotics related education products that we can kind of recommend to schools or say, hey, this is something that we found useful for this particular section and in these ways, and letting those school districts make a well-informed decision about the trajectory that they'd like to set for their students.
What
We
resources?
also, yeah, we also have a YouTube channel.
Yes.
And we've posted a couple of things on there. You know, when COVID first started, we had a STEM week where we did something different every day. We started with just the root software on the whiteboard, and then we kind of progressed up through different things. So we do have a YouTube channel that has some of this. We're also starting a STEM newsletter, and we're hoping by, let's say, November timeframe, we'll have a newsletter that comes out with recommended gifts for children in the robotics area, and for teachers and educators.
I'm assuming that people can sign up for your newsletter on the website you gave before, the MassRobotics website. Are there other resources that you would really love to recommend to any educators that are listening right now? Let's say that we have an educator in an underserved community, and the problem is the kids are probably not getting enough to eat, much less they can't get computers and robotics. How do we serve them?
What I would say is where we're at, I think a Chromebook might be a standard across most places, especially after the pandemic. And there are ways from elementary to high school to teach all of electronics, coding, 3D design, robotics, all online via several different platforms that have been vetted thoroughly. A lot of people gamify different things through a couple of websites. But what I recommend teachers to do is, after you have a basic foundation of, let's say, programming in a basic language like Scratch. It's a block coding language that elementary school students can easily use. I recommend that for teachers that may not have super amount of technical experience, allowing those students to do their history project using Scratch. Do that book report using this coding program where they can create an animation, getting across all the same information that they normally would have. So it's really about changing the way that we look at different resources and incorporating them into the rest of our learning environment. And some of that as a teacher takes us kind of opening up and being okay saying that I may not be able to answer this student's question because that's not my expertise. But even as a computer engineer, I receive questions from students all the time that I may not have an exact answer to, and that's okay. So I guess for teachers, I would say take advantage of incorporating a basic skill into other areas of learning. But I would, as a resource, I would kind of recommend the AutoCAD software that
That's really good. Yeah.
I actually.
And is that free on?
Yes.
So it's free it's Tinkercad, right?
Yes, Tinkercad. So I actually spoke at a webinar last week with Tinkercad Autodesk. They invited me to speak on robotics and from a software standpoint. So we could actually, using the Tinkercad software, create an entire electronics lab without breaking a single LED resistor, any of that stuff. So all of it can be done online. You can 3D print, 3D design, as well as kind of program an Arduino and do the software aspects as well. So those are for someone who's a little bit more technical. And I gave an example a little bit for someone who's a little bit lower level with the Scratch example as well. So those are a couple really, in my opinion, easy to interact with softwares, and ways that I would engage with them within a classroom. Or
So you say Tinkercad's free. It's an
Yes.
Autodesk product.
Correct.
And it runs on a Chromebook.
And it runs on a Chromebook, yes.
Which is what most kids have in school.
Everything that I mentioned just now runs on a Chromebook. And they're all online based, so you don't need any physical materials, which keeps cost at a minimum for all students, but it creates so much potential if used correctly.
Which is really exciting. What's been the most, I've heard a real fun element be incorporated multiple times as we've been talking about what you do, especially now when you're talking about using the Scratch and doing history, as opposed to read the chapter and answer the questions, yawn. But what's been the most fun that each of you has had so far getting ready for Robo Boston 2023?
You want to go first?
Okay, so we have some awesome displays and demos, and like, I have to say, it's really hard to pick favorites because it's almost like picking your favorite child. You don't want to make the other kids mad at you. But I will say the Festo birds were one of my favorite, and they'll be back. So they're actually bionic birds that will be flying in the tent, and they have butterflies too. So the beautiful butterflies. And the best story is when I was standing at the entrance to the tent, and a parent came up to me and said, you know, you have some pigeons in the tent. You might need to, you know, think about how to get them out. And I looked at the guy and I said, look a little bit closer. Those are not real pigeons. They are bionic birds. And they're launched over in that corner. It was amazing. Like, he thought they were real.
That's great. I love that. How about for you, Kevin?
So far, it's definitely been kind of getting excited with the demos. We were in conversation about an organization that we were doing an underwater drone camp with.
Oh, yeah.
About bringing some of the products from that underwater drone camp that students create to Robo Boston. So to imagine a tank with drones swimming in it that were designed by students, understanding all the principles that go behind it. So something like that really has been exciting me.
That's going to be a first. We haven't done that.
We have not done that.
We've had water tanks with other things, but we haven't had the student ones.
So so that's exciting to me right now. And as you see, there's so many projects going on here at MassRobotics. There's so many things kind of moving forward.
We'll be flying the kids' drones also from the Drone Academy.
Oh, we will. The week before the underwater drone camp, we're having a normal drone camp. I guess the flying drones,
airborne
drones, where the students will be creating those drones from and building out all the hardware, doing the soldering with a Raspberry Pi, adding the propellers, everything. And they're going to be able to fly those at Robo Boston as well. So there's going to be a lot of not only industry grade robotics that can be found throughout Massachusetts and some beyond Massachusetts as well. But there's going to be a lot of student-led projects as well. So I'm really excited to see the variation and levels of experience and how that comes across in the different products.
Wow. How can people best support MassRobotics since you're a nonprofit? What do you need?
Cash is king. So we get a lot of donations because we are a nonprofit, but
to be honest, from the STEM standpoint, that's what I can speak to heavily. We do our best to try to create a reduced charge or not charge public schools as much as possible. That can be a lot when you think about the impact that we've been speaking about and trying to make, while trying to make sure that it's accessible for everyone. So one thing from a STEM standpoint, we can definitely use support so that we can divert costs away from schools and be able to provide more of an impact. Our biggest thing, again, is making everything accessible. And sometimes from the STEM standpoint, that means taking a loss, which I get in trouble from the from the general organization. So that's definitely something that from the STEM standpoint, we can use support with so that we can expand the impact that we want to make.
Yeah, we would love to hire support. So right now we have a very lean staff. And so we try hard to support everybody, but it's difficult with the limited resources we have.
Final question I usually like to ask for my podcast. If people could only get one thing from you about innovation, creativity, and making a difference, what would you like them to take away from the work that you're doing?
I know something.
So my takeaway would be robotics is a very cross-disciplinary field that needs experts in all fields. And so it's very welcoming to everybody. We do not have enough technical people. We want people to be interested, and that's really the goal of this. One of the goals of Robo Boston, really expose people so they realize that it's really an open book, right? Anybody can do it, and we need all types. So it's really that's my big thing is everyone thinks, oh, you have to be an engineer and you have to be able to mechanically do these things. No, it's designers. It's even just people to come up with an idea of seeing an issue or a challenge and saying that could be solved by robotics. So that's my takeaway. I want everyone to understand that it's really an open book.
There's a space for you in this room. And for me, I want people, I guess, coming from the STEM standpoint, to do something that I call fail forward. And that's something that through everything that we've been talking about, we've had to embrace through the art aspect, the engineering, the technical, the social, all aspects. We have to learn from our experiences. There's no program that is built right perfectly the first time. There's no robot, there is no technical creation, no computer that's done correctly the first time. But we have to learn through these experiences and move forward. And we have to take that same mindset into everything we do. So if we can, like I was saying before, through computer science, there's so much we can learn about life in general and how to approach things. And going back there in computer science, you have to fail forward to get to that successful place. And in life, I'd like us all to fail forward as well and learn and keep growing, because that's a part of the process.
And it's not failing, you're learning, right? If you're learning, you don't look back and say it was a failure because you've learned something.
Exactly.
Joyce, Kevin, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.